All right. So, hello, my name is Kekoa Wong, and I am presenting today on empowering user experience. So, first, little intro about myself. I am an incoming junior computer engineer at Notre Dame. Um, I was originally debating between chemical engineering and aerospace engineering coming in. I knew I wanted to be an engineer, but did not know what sort. And then I was originally a digital marketing minor. Uh, and then I switched to philosophy, politics, and economics because I found that I had an interest in human behavior and how that relates to finance, business, and economics. And then I've lived in California all of my life. My dad's side of the family is from Hawaii, while my mom's side is from Connecticut. And so they met in the middle on the West Coast. Um, yeah, this is just an outline of what I'm going to be presenting on today. So first, I'm going to go over what is user experience. Then I'm going to discuss human behavior principles, and I'm going to illustrate them in everyday examples, specifically non-tech examples. And then I will show how these human behavior principles are implemented in today's technology. And then finally, I will just discuss how user experience, which is UX, can be used to change the future. So first, what is user experience? So user experience is closely related to user interface design. User interface design could be anything relating to a MATLAB GUI, to the command line, to the appearance of Mac OS, whereas user experience is focused more on the emotions, needs, and wants of the user. User experience is referred to a lot as an evolution of great user interface. Because if you have a very bad user interface, you can't really draw an experience from that. So I don't think any of us are really emotionally attached to a MATLAB GUI, for example, unless it's a negative connotation. But you can't really draw like an emotional experience from a bad user interface. And this relationship between interface design and experience is not exclusive to technology. Um, a quick example is running shoes. An old man who grills might like New Balance running shoes, whereas a person in our generation would probably rather buy Adidas or Nike. Um, and while it's a very similar product, it's a running shoe, the experience and how the shoe makes us feel is different. Um, whereas like Nike's more younger and New Balance is for the older folks. Okay, so I went over user experience. Now I'm going to dive into human behavior principles and give you some real world examples of them. So behavioral economics is a field that studies human behavior. It's branched off of economics and psychology. How many of you guys have taken an economics course? Probably a few of you, or actually maybe none of you. Anyway, the premise of economics is that humans are fully rational creatures. So we are fully informed, fully rational, and we make decisions that maximize our utility in terms of goods and services or like uh, financial things. Versus behavioral economics almost throws this premise out the window. Um, so it assumes that humans are not fully rational, that we don't always make the best decisions for our own goods and services or financial well-being. Um, and so that's where the psychology comes in, where it explores human behavior further than economics, including this non-rational side, and using like psychology ideas. So because of the way it's flipped, like the economics field on its head almost, there's been a lot of Nobel Prize winners who come out of behavioral economics field, such as like Daniel Kahneman and Richard Thaler, which I think they won the award in like the early 2000s. So this is a very large field, but for our purposes, we're most interested in choice architecture, which comes from this field, and I will explain that more right here. So these are just some 5 choice architecture considerations that I listed. I picked them from Daniel Kahneman and Richard Thaler. And choice architecture, it's important to know if you're building any sort of system that is going to influence a bunch of people. So, for example, that could be policies that our president or those governing us make, or that could be just making apps. It's just important to know these things when you're going to build something that a lot of people are going to be using or living with. So, first one is structuring and simplifying complex decisions. So humans like simplicity. We don't like to get overwhelmed with a bunch of small decisions. An example of this is a menu. So imagine if you went to a restaurant. So you go to a restaurant, right? They give you this menu. You have, different options such as salmon's, ciabatta roll, and these are different meals that you can have. Versus, imagine if you went to a restaurant, instead of giving you meals, they gave you a list of all the ingredients that they had in the pantry. So that would be a little bit more overwhelming, more difficult, because especially if you're not a chef, you don't know how to combine these ingredients into something that's going to be good or tasty. That's why we have the menus, is which we can have these meals as a basis, but we can make small changes to them. So like if we don't want mushrooms on our pizza or something like that, we make the small changes, but we have the meals as the basis that they give to us. So this simplifies a very complex decision for us with just one small thing. Second is incentives. So incentives are anything that drive an individual to do an action. This could be a social incentive. It could be a financial incentive. And a common example in the real world is marketing campaigns. Marketing campaigns try to artificially reproduce a lot of incentives. So, for example, this one says, don't miss out. This is artificially reproducing a social incentive, making you feel that a lot of other people are buying a product or buying this credit card, but it's actually just making you feel like, oh, I would be a loser, or I would just be behind on the times if I didn't purchase this product. So through language, they're pushing this social incentive. So next is default choice. Default choice is all about lowering user effort threshold. So humans are naturally very lazy. We don't put in effort to do something if we don't care about changing the situation we are in. This can be seen with a gym membership, for example. So when you purchase a gym membership, you walk in, you buy at first at the location or whatever, but then for every month after that, do you have to go in and buy it every single time? No. So you have it automatically renewed every month, and that's the default choice. For Planet Fitness, for example, it could be $5 a month just to have that membership renewed every month. And it's sometimes we won't even notice that's withdrawn from our bank account. Other times, if you notice that's withdrawn, but you don't really use the product very often, you don't go to Planet Fitness very often, but you think, oh, it's only $5. Like it would take a lot of effort for me to go in and cancel this, and I don't necessarily have the time for that right now. And it's not worth it for you to put in that effort to change it. This is where default choice considerations come into play, which is humans are only going to change this choice if they want to change their situation enough and care enough about it and put in the effort. Okay, so next is reward. There's two types of rewards. So rewards are offered to individuals for doing tasks. It's like encouraging people to repeat certain actions that they have done. And there's two types. There's a fixed reward, which is offered to an individual after a fixed amount of time and interaction. And there's also a variable reward, which is offered to a person after a variable amount of time or effort. So an example of a fixed reward would be a paycheck. So for 2 weeks, we put in a lot of work to do something, such as working on Eventurely, something like that. And then after 2 weeks, we're offered a paycheck. and this rewards us for our previous 2 weeks of work. And it comes at a fixed increment of time versus a variable reward. An example of that would be a slot machine. So we know the action that would lead us to a reward, such as pulling a lever, but we don't necessarily know when that reward is going to come. So this is why variable rewards become very addictive, because with the example of a slot machine, you don't know when you pull that lever if a reward, such as a jackpot, is going to come after 1 pull or 1,000 pulls. So many people just start throwing in money because they think that the reward is going to come soon. They just don't know when. So variable reward becomes very addictive. And finally, sorry, this is a long slide, but investment is the final choice architecture consideration. So humans tend to value things higher when they have invested a lot of time and effort into them. An example would be a line. This is something we experience every day. So you go to North Dining Hall in a Southwest Salad Day, and you jump into line, and then about halfway through, you think, is it really worth it that I'm in this line? So of course, we look, when we're deciding this, we look in front of us. We see, oh, there's about this much time left. But then we look behind us and see how long the line has grown, or how much we've invested into the line. I know I'm speaking from my experience, where I look behind me and I think, oh, the line's super long. I've invested a lot into this. I'm not going to leave this line anymore. So a funnier example of investment is parents and their children. So parents invest a lot of time and effort into their child. It's probably the most time and effort object or person, that you will invest into. So because of this, parents tend to value their children higher than they actually are. So you would say, oh, Johnny is so smart, he's athletic, he has so many friends. Whereas a person who's not the parent will think, Johnny's not that great. He's not that great of a kid. And this is because they haven't invested that time and effort into the kid to have that view of them that they're greater than they are. So those are the 5 choice architecture considerations that I pulled. Sorry, that was a lot. So now I'm going to go over them again, but I'm going to show how they're implemented in today's technology versus the examples I just gave, of them in the real world. So first, here they are again. So structured complex decisions, incentives, default choice reward, and investment. So first, once again, structured complex decisions. What is this on the right? Someone answer. A computer science person. Someone needs to unmute themselves and answer.
Whoa, is that the NFS or whatever we switch to now login
terminal,
system?
Right?
Sweet, yeah.
So this is a terminal, and all of us computer science and engineers, we know how powerful this is, right? This is how we navigate computers, how we it's based on our operating system. But it's not very structured, right? First time you log on to this, you're like, what do I do? I don't know where to start. So Yenem, I hate to pick on you as the only non-computer science person here, but say you had to open files, what would you do? So you had to open and view your files. How would you start? Yeah,
I had to open and view my computer files?
Yeah, do you have any idea how you would start if you saw this?
If I saw that?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, now, what about on one of these interfaces? Mac OS or Windows? How would you open your files?
I would click Finder.
You click Finder, right? And
or I guess or files in PC.
Yeah.
Is that PC?
Yeah, perfect. And what these systems do is it's a lot more structured, right? So say you wanted to open a browser, you click Firefox, or you click the browser. And to open the files, you click the files. It's very structured decision making. Versus this, you don't really know where to start. So even for us computer scientists, if you're a sane person and want to say launch Spotify, you would do it from these interfaces instead of this thing at Rayon. So next, I'm gonna go into incentives. So Snapchat, I think, is a super good app that is good at putting in artificial incentives for their users. So once again, I need participation. What does this empty box mean? Someone call out the answer.
You left them on red, right?
Yes, you left them on red versus was this?
They left you on red.
Yeah. And then how do you feel if someone leaves you on red?
Angry.
Angry, right? Because you're like, that person's ignored, they're just not responding to me, they don't care about me that much. To say, for this example, right, say Rachel's like a friend of yours, and you open her Snapchat. Are you more likely to respond since you know that she can see that you left her on red and you don't want to offend her, right? So you're probably going to respond because you don't want to be like, oh, I left you on red. You don't want to explain that and have it alter the relationship. So
True.
this is like a social incentive that Snapchat has artificially reproduced in their app, where since you can see if someone has opened your messages, you're going to be more likely to respond and continue using the app because you don't want to offend the person that you're snapping with. Another example of a great incentive is this hourglass right here. What does this hourglass mean? Someone else besides Kendall. Rafa, go. Or Grace, go.
Oh, I'm gonna say you're about to lose your streak.
Yeah, you're about to lose your streak, right? And so this is almost a time incentive, right? It's saying, oh, if you don't use this app soon, and you don't reply to this person, you're gonna lose the streak that you have made with this person. So that's another artificial incentive that Snapchat reproduces in order to encourage users to use their app more. Okay, next is default choice. So here's a question. What makes individuals send more pictures over Snapchat versus WhatsApp or iMessage? Does anyone have an idea?
Well, when you open the app, that's the first thing you see, right? It's just the camera.
Yeah. So awesome. Yeah. You open Snapchat, right? And the first option is the camera. It's also when you respond to someone, right? The camera is the default option. Versus you open iMessage, what's the default option? It's the keyboard, right? So they're encouraging you to send a text versus the secondary option is the camera right here. So this small change encourages people so much more to send pictures over Snapchat versus text, right? Because the secondary option on Snapchat is to slide and send text. So just that small little switch changed how users will use the app. So now everyone, there's another example I think that's really good. So everyone pull out their phones. I think, yeah, it's okay. You can also pull out your phone. I think, is that what you're viewing on right now? So everyone pull out their phones, open Instagram.
Oh, I don't have Instagram.
You don't have it? Okay, that's okay. So if you open Instagram, what's the default launching screen?
I have a picture of Megan Thee Stallion's butt on my feed.
So the default option is the feed, correct? Like you said.
Yeah.
So when you launch the app, it puts you right into the middle of the action. And it's once you click the app, you just start absorbing information, liking posts, and looking at Megan Thee Stallion's butt. So you do all of these different things right away. Versus, how many of you guys have the Notre Dame app? So if you have the Notre Dame app, launch the Notre Dame app. Has everyone launched on it? Okay. So when you launch this app, there's no clear default choice when you open it, right? And in order to do something on this app, you have to put in, so remember, default choice is about lowering an effort threshold for a human. So you have to put in a lot of effort in order to figure out what you want to do in this app. Like so you have to have a predefined idea. Oh, I want to go into academics. I want to look at grades. It's very structured. It's structured very well, but there's very effortful to do anything that you want to do with this. So versus like, you would never launch this app mindlessly just to like scroll and explore it, right? This is something that you'd have to have a very specific idea of what you'd want to do within this app. Versus Instagram can just launch it and start exploring right away. So that's another example of default choice, that putting the user right into the action so they can start absorbing information right away. And that lowers the effort threshold for them to become involved in your app. Okay, so next, reward. Like I said, there's two different types of reward. There's fixed reward and there's variable reward. And so this is Clash of Clans. I love this game. Did anyone else play this game? Yeah, Rafa played this game. So I love this. But for those of you who did not play this is a gold mine, and this is an elixir pump. And so an example of a fixed reward that they implemented in this app is they would put gold would come up from these mines like at a fixed amount of time. So say after 4 hours or so, I would be able to collect more gold. So this would encourage me to open this app like every few hours, because I'd say, oh, I need to go collect my resources. So I'd go collect my gold, go collect my elixir. And then I would also do some other stuff in the app. But that small trigger at a fixed amount of time would always encourage me to at least open the app. So yeah, example of fixed reward in an app. Second, variable reward. Kendall, you want to explain your Tinder hypothesis quickly? Do you remember that?
Remind me of it.
You said about the soulmate.
Oh yeah, I was like, what if they had an algorithm that matched you with your perfect soulmate, and they already knew who it was, but they wanted you to keep using the app, so they just like avoided that person and gave you people you would just be interested in instead of like paired to.
Yeah,
that's it. That's my hypothesis.
So while I doubt that Tinder like knows your soulmate, they do something similar, where so on Tinder when you swipe right, you see, I forget what it is. Swipe right when you want to match with someone, or is that swipe left? I think it's swipe left.
Swipe left is no, swipe right is yes.
So most of the time you're gonna be swiping left, I think, right? Unless you're really needy. But that being said, they don't offer you someone that they know that you're gonna match with every single time after the first swipe. What they do instead is they have a predictions of who they think that you'll match with, and they offer you those people at variable amounts of time. So you swipe, and every once in so often, you see someone that you're interested in, and then you swipe right. And so this replicates that slot machine type reward, where you don't know when you're gonna get that reward, and so you just keep on swiping because you don't know if it's gonna be the next person or it's gonna be a person 100 times later. So once again, it becomes addictive. You see people log onto Tinder right away, you just start swiping away because it's an addictive type of action that you get a variable reward from. Another great example is TikTok. You just continue to have that infinite scroll of new TikToks. And there's not a good TikTok every single time, right? Is you have to scroll, people say TikTok requires time, right? You scroll through and every once in a while, you find a great TikTok that you send to your friends, you like, you save it, and you enjoy it. But then you might not get another good TikTok like that for a long time. And so once again, it's offered at variable increments, a great TikTok, which makes it very addictive. I know I have tons of friends who they're like, oh, I spend like 5 hours on TikTok in a day because it has that slot machine type aspect where it's offering you a variable reward for an action. Yeah, then that's variable reward. And finally, investment. So this is a screenshot of Instagram. I think Instagram is really good at investment. So you see this person has 1,300 posts. They also have a really good profile aesthetic, right? We always hear about that. If you have a good profile aesthetic, that means that you're like probably a really good influencer or something. So this person, like I said, investment, humans, when they put a lot of time and effort into something, they tend to value it higher. So this individual, since they put so much time and effort into their profile, like even having matching aesthetic, they're going to value their profile and the app so much higher than they would if they had put no time and effort into it. So Instagram is very good at creating a space for that investment. So do you think that this person who's had 1,300 posts and all this work with aesthetic, are they just going to delete Instagram at a whim's notice? No, they're not going to do that because they know how much effort they've put into it and they think that this app is great. So yeah, those are the 5 ways that these types of ideas are implemented in technology. And now I'm going to go into how user experience can be used to change the future. So this quote, do not design for customers' wants today, but instead create an experience that guides users to become who you want them to be tomorrow. This is not my idea. I wish it could, but this is an MIT professor. I kind of summed up the ideas that he expressed in the book for user experience. But these are his ideas summed up in the quote. So basically with this, if we're making an app and we see a need that customers have today, if we're creating the app just for those needs today, we're being very reactionary and we're going to be one step behind because we're always going to just respond to what customers' needs are versus creating an app that we lead our users on a trajectory that we want them to go along. So in that way, we're not only one step ahead, but we know where we want our customers to become in the future. So thinking of this idea, what are companies such as Tinder, Snapchat, and TikTok shaping their customers into? What type of trajectory are they leading their customers on? So thinking of these principles that they've put in their apps, such as Tinder and TikTok, implementing variable reward, making their apps very addictive, their end goals seem to be addicting their users to create more data, use their app more, which they can then sell for a profit. So their end goal is just to make users use their app for their own app's purposes of profit. And same with Snapchat. Snapchat creates these crazy incentives, right? But it's just to influence the user to use their app more. That's the end goal, just for the using their app more for more profit so that the users can create more data. Versus, I didn't use a Microsoft example, I'm sorry, but I think Apple is a great example of this, in which they provide a reward, for example, with Apple Watch, right? You fill these circles. Yeah, there's the Apple Watch. You might have to destroy that with Microsoft though. So they create these rewards, right, with filling circles, but the end goal is not to addict users to using the Apple Watch, right? The end goal is to encourage users to exercise and be healthy individuals. So thinking of this and thinking of how we can implement these types of what's called ideas in our app, how can we implement these considerations that is beneficial to individuals and their community? So I think that's the goal eventually. We don't want people to be addicted to just using our app for our own app's purpose, but we want them to become involved in their community and encouraged and rewarded to do different things. So here, I want this to be more of a discussion. Some hotshot designer sent me these low fidelity screens. So going through these different ideas, I want one person tell me, how do we structure complex decisions in this app with just these screenshots? Oop, we'll go back. Rayon, you go. How do you think we structure complex decisions in this app?
What do you mean by complex decisions?
So for complex decisions, could we just put like every single ability that the user could do? We could just put it in one screen, right? We could just say, oh, you can post, you can look at feeds, you can explore everything. We can just put this all like in one hodgepodge screen, right? And like not use this bottom bar. We can just plaster it all in one spot. Versus, right, what we do is we say, oh, you have these different options that you can go to. And on these different options, you can do different things, correct? We had the debate the other day about where should we put stuff to do with managing new groups, right? And creating new groups. Is it better to structure that in the feed screen? Is it better to structure that in the Explorer screen? Or should we create a new Manage tab, right? So this is how we're structuring, like, there's a lot of capabilities of this app, right? Like the back end, there's a lot of things that you can do with this. But how are we going to structure this in a way that users will naturally know what to do at like different points or different areas of the app? So one way we do it is just by separating the different screens right here. What about incentives? Like what's an incentive maybe that we can implement in this app or have thought about implementing in this app?
We had that whole sort of ranking of like participants in like groups and community and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we had the idea of like somehow measuring engagement. Sorry, Kendall, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say the community engagement score that I still like, the community engagement score. I really do.
Yeah, so we were trying to provide that social incentive artificially in our app, right? By measuring engagement and by also having that measured in the app, but also having other people the ability to see your profile and see how much you've engaged. So that you would want to engage in your community more because you don't want to suffer the embarrassment of being a low community engagement member. So that's, once again, an artificial incentive that we're trying to implement in our app somehow. What about default choice? So, or how are some ways do you think that we can put a default choice in our app? So like one idea I had maybe, or what Yetam had, was immediately on the launch of the app, go to the feed screen, correct? And put users right in the middle of the information right away so they can start absorbing content instead of having to put them maybe in like a launch screen, right? Like why don't we have them log in every single time that they open the app? It's because that has a high effort threshold to put in your username and your password every single time you want to open the app versus just launch them right into the app with the information. That way they can start absorbing right away. Finally, it's a reward. And reward is different because I was trying to figure out ways that we could implement reward in our app. One idea that I had mentioned earlier was if, say, an event was coming up. So if you had an event maybe over here somewhere, and an event was coming up, here, actually, sorry, these are events. It would have a clock symbol, right? Showing that the time's getting close. And then if you attended that event, you get like a big check mark on it, right? And then your community score would increase, showing that you attended the event. So these are just another way that we can think about how we can implement these rewards in our app. And does anyone else have any ideas of rewards that we have or we could implement? We can also discuss this more later, off the record. Okay, I will continue. Okay, and finally, investment. So investment, I think, is going to be involved with your profile and how much you have put into the app. So if you could see all of the groups that you were involved in and your positions and how your participation in them and how many years that you've been involved, you would like seeing how much you have put into not only the app, but your community. And because of this, because of the overall amount of engagement you've had in your community is on the app, users would be less likely to leave the app because they would not want to just delete all of the history of engagement that they've had with their community. So yeah, that was the idea I had for investment. But overall, once again, with these goals, we're not trying to make our app addicting. We just want users to become more engaged in the community and how we provide the artificial incentives and rewards and choice architecture to make them achieve those goals. So that is the end of my presentation. I think I'm a little like 5 minutes early, but yes, that is it. Thank you guys for listening.
Wowza, that was awesome. Mind is blown. That was really cool. Does anybody have any questions for Kekoa or thoughts or ideas?
I have another kind of like kind of dumb question.
No questions, dumb.
No such thing as a dumb question.
It has to do with Apple. Although I do believe that certain products from Apple may have a better goal in mind, I do think that like Apple's pricing is manipulative. Like, I feel like it has
status pricing, right?
Huh?
They do status pricing, right?
Yeah. I think it's extremely expensive. Like, I think it's ridiculous. And I'm not really sure because obviously, like, I don't really know what parts cost and things like that, but I'm not really sure what the true value of like certain Apple products are, but I just feel like they're really highly priced. And I even have an Apple product, so like clearly that didn't stop me, but do you think that that has something to do with like manipulating consumer behavior? Because I feel like it does.
Yeah, I absolutely do think that's true. Like, I think the things that Apple creates, they're not necessarily trying to like Apple's business model, right? It's not based off data collection. So companies such as Tinder, Snapchat, like apps that are free to use, the way they make money is off data collection and targeted advertisements. So that's not Apple's business model. Apple sells products, and that's how they earn money. So, but with that, right?
Oh, I see.
They do try to like make users want to buy their products at expensive prices. So they do have like some, like you said, some marketing tactics that influence like status pricing to make you buy stuff that's like pretty overpriced. So like AirPods, for example, like they were super cool and people were like, oh my gosh, like you must have clout if you have AirPods. But like Apple is super smart in how like they marketed that, I think. But yes, like they are manipulating people a little bit to buy these things at expensive prices.
Right. I feel like at that point, though, we wouldn't buy, like Apple wouldn't have the same success as it does today unless they did choose to price higher than everybody else. Just because they targeted like rich people who could easily afford it at first. And then everyone saw, when Kylie Jenner owns 6 iPhones, like everybody wants an iPhone, so it's like it kind of lets us into the world that we feel like we're not usually a part of. Mm-hmm. It's a luxury. I really luxury brand.
Mm. Kendall, you're still, you're frozen right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I've been to a lot of countries and I think all of them, the majority of people don't use iPhone, they use like Android phones. So I think it's, okay, maybe not Europe because I haven't been to Europe. Maybe they use more iPhones? I don't know.
They use a lot of iPhones, yeah.
Okay. So I think it's just the US, huh?
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Oh, I was saying like, I think it definitely is kind of like this status thing. Because I think like the US and like Europe and like all of the more like Caucasian kind of countries are more iPhone based, and like all of the other countries that I've been to, I feel like were Android mostly. So
yeah, I do feel like it's more, their marketing tactics are more successful in America, primarily because like Americans are more tied to that idea of like status, right? And I think also, I don't think in Europe it's as common either. My friend from Spain always says that like he doesn't really see people with iPhones like in Europe, but it's just a big American thing.
I would say to add to that, I remember like a couple years back, my mom wanted to go, or she went and traveled back to her home country, Bangladesh, and she like called like relatives over there before she was gonna go, and like one of our family members was like, if you could you like bring me an iPhone? Like, we don't even have iPhones. Okay, we got like an Android. Is that cool? Like we could get you that. That's fine. And he's like, no, I just want an iPhone. And we're like, why? It's like, it seems pretty cool. Like all right, like, well, sorry, you can take an Android if you want, but so like you can see, like, I don't know, I think the status thing does still apply. It's maybe just not as widespread just because it is still a very expensive item, especially if you're not in like a first world country like the US. But it still does hold that like status worldwide, I'd say.
Any more questions or comments?
Oh, I just had a random idea. This is like completely unrelated. So I was
Sorry,
thinking that
Alex.
like, what's up?
Nothing.
Okay. I was just gonna say, I was thinking about like this year we probably won't be able to have a career fair on campus or something. It'd be kind of nice if we had in the app like you could like at least upload like a video of something like maybe like just like the board members of a group, something like just like talking about the group or something like that. Like it just seems like that might be a handy thing to have, but just a random thought.
For you mean the activities fair
Yeah,
or
like
the
it could
career
just be,
fair?
oh, the
Okay.
activities fair. Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Is the recording still on, by the way?
It is. Here, I can stop it. Sorry, everyone. You did such a great job, but now we're
Yeah.
going to talk about Eventurely strategies. So, thanks, YouTube.